I went home that night to our apartment building and I wailed so loud that James held me and they called the cops because our neighbors thought I was being hurt. That's how distraught I was that my fertility was now officially gone. I didn't know that breast cancer treatment affects fertility. Why would you? It's breast cancer.
At what point are you saying that you want fertility preservation?
3 days in to this whirlwind of breast cancer diagnosis, I'm with chief of breast surgery of all of Mount Sinai. She goes, do you want kids? And we both said, yeah, we really do.
Sarrah Strimel-Bentley is a former Broadway performer, yoga instructor, and breast cancer advocate who gained national attention for her resilience and her journey to motherhood through surrogacy.
She's like, well, this treatment is going to affect your fertility. And we need to make sure that you have an opportunity to preserve it before you start it. And he said, do you want to freeze eggs or embryos? Because if you freeze embryos, it's a better success rate. So I look at James, because I don't know how to answer. I want to see how he's going to answer. And he didn't even skip a beat and he said, embryos. I was like, whoa. Okay.
Like, this is real.
This is my man. That was deeper than a ring. That was like a 10-carat diamond that man just gave me. And the first round after we knew we had a boy, we named him. I was like, so you're saying there's a chance? And James was like, Chance. And I said, his name is Chance. I spoke his name aloud for years to get him here. And he's here now. And he's amazing.
Just got the major chills. Hi, Sarrah.
Hi.
Welcome to All Over Again podcast.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with you. It took us long enough to rope me and rope us together with our schedules. So,
I mean, you've got a 2-year-old and that makes life fluid.
Full.
Yes.
and
I was gonna
awesome.
Say. And awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to just dive right in.
Mm-hmm.
If someone were to meet you tomorrow and you had 10 minutes to spend in a conversation with them, and they didn't know that you are a former Broadway performer, they didn't know about your history with breast cancer, they didn't know that you went through IVF and used a surrogate, and that you advocate fiercely for women's health, what would you want them to take away from that conversation?
What would I want them to take away? Not what I think. That Sarrah is a joyful human being. That Sarrah is mining what she can out of every moment, and that she lives out loud. I think that, to me, that's how I hope people see me, because that's how I see myself. And you know, I think when you live your life beyond the titles, when you live your life for the moments, right? Because that's what life is. It's a collection of these beautiful moments that we craft and that we mine and that we find. And so what I do, right, is a thing that I do. And it changes. I'm a slash. I got all the slashes, girl, as you just said. But truly is that, and she makes me feel, I'm saying my third person now, if someone was speaking about me, I'd hope that they say that she makes me feel seen and makes me feel joyful as well when I'm around her. So yeah, that's what I hope people say in dark corners. You know, maybe some people say other things, but.
No, I get that vibe from you.
Good.
And I've read that you talk a lot about joy mining.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what joy mining is?
Under 5 minutes and I'm going to curse. I love this. You brought it up right away. There's always an over and under how long it takes me to curse on any podcast or in any speech. So we're good. We're under 5. I coined the term joy mining when, spoiler alert, I was going through stage 2 breast cancer at the age of 38. Because I knew I had a long road to go. You know, and this diagnosis I received, it rocked my world, as it would. You know, I had just met the man that I'd fallen madly in love with. You know, dating in New York City for 20 years. Took a while to find the right one. I always wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have a family. And so I finally found him. And we were like, let's have babies. Let's do this thing. And then bam, I found a lump in my breast, right? That would be diagnosed as breast cancer. So I knew this road was going to be long. I knew there were going to be a lot of twists and turns and unanswered questions. Would I ever be a mom? What's going to happen to my fertility? Am I going to be alive at the end of this? I mean, big questions, like big ones, big questions, you know? And so I knew, though, that if I'm going to spend a year fighting for my life, that's still a year of my life in the grand sum. And I was in love. And we did just buy a house, a dream house on the beach in East Hampton that I had always dreamt of. You know, I did just get a dog a year before, which again was a dream of mine. But as a showgirl who traveled a lot, Took me a while to be able to get that dog. So I had everything I'd ever dreamt of before this diagnosis had just come into fruition. So how am I going to live this next year while I'm going through the worst thing I've ever had to encounter, right? It's going to be painful. I'm going to let that pain seep through me. I'm going to feel the pain. I'm going to live it fully, but I'm also going to look for the joy because there is still a lot of joy around me. And I'm going to have to look a little harder because there's pain covering it. So I always say joy mining. To me, I had this vision. I was like, don't waste this year of your life. Live it. Live all of the things, all the emotions. But you're going to have to mine it because this joy is covered in some shit right now. It's pretty shitty breast cancer. So you just got to look a little harder for it and dig a little deeper. So I had like the idea of mining diamonds. Like you got to dig down in that shit to get the joy, but it's there, right? It's just not as easily accessible. So that's how joy mining came to be. Because I always like I get jazzed at the smallest things in life. Like a piece of crumb cake can change my life one day.
Oh,
right?
I feel that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Crumb cake, great. Achieving my Broadway dream, that's joyful. Like it's the big stuff and it's the little stuff. And it's always there.
The glimmers.
I love glimmer. You know what? My friend Allison Hall, who's a great reporter with Inside Edition, also a breast cancer survivor, she uses glimmer a lot. I love that.
I love her story too. I mean,
Yeah.
she was in early detection because she was covering a
Olivia Munn
story. Yes.
Yep.
I mean, this is why awareness is so incredibly important.
It
And I
is.
want to talk more about awareness. But first, how do you remember to joy mine during the moments that feel really hard?
How do I remember? How do I think again, it's just a muscle that I had strengthened through my life. I think being on Broadway and being in that profession and training for that profession, even as a teenager and as a child, it's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of what ifs. It's a lot of, I don't know. Am I going to be able to pay my rent next week? Is my show going to close? Are you going to tell me at an audition that I'm 2 inches too tall for you? And so I won't be able to pay my rent because I won't get this job. There are so many things that, going through rejection on Broadway and you have to just build that. It's tenacity. It's, the joy mining muscle. I've never put it this way, but let's go into that. Like the joy mining muscle, to build it and to flex it, it does. It takes tenacity to find that joy in life. It takes resilience. So I had built up this muscle through my life's experiences. So when it came time to face breast cancer, when it came time to face infertility, when it came time to face the surrogacy journey I was on, my muscle was already there because I had spent my life doing it. So I necessarily didn't have to remind myself to do it. It sort of just flexes, right? It's just like it's an automatic reflex I have in my life. So that came in handy. I just reframed it as joy mining. But in the deep, dark moments, when it was really, really, really hard to find the joy, I think I would always I turned towards the pain. I talk about this a lot. I turned towards the pain instead of turning away from it. I turned towards my changing body. I would go do yoga every morning on my mat in my underwear. So I was stark naked on purpose. And through the journey of my breast cancer treatment, and really the last 5 years, since I got my diagnosis in 2020, I've been through so much hardship. I would land on that mat every morning, and some days I would be so distraught because I had my drains in from my surgery and I couldn't even move my arms, or I was so puffy from chemo I couldn't stop farting, or whatever it was, right? I couldn't find any beauty those days. So I just laid on my mat and I cried. But because I turned towards myself and not away from myself, I was constantly doing that, like, here's where we are today. And then it grounded me. Like the pain grounded me, all of it. And from that grounding of whatever that yoga looked like that day, I was able to find joy in that, like was able to find like, okay, I'm here, I'm alive. Because that's pretty joyful. When you're looking at the face of death, you're like, we're still here. Haven't gotten me yet, breast cancer, So,
And yoga was a practice that you already had. It almost seems like it set you up in a way to have this tool to help contend with this really difficult time.
It really did. Yoga changed my life out of nowhere. I was in my mid-20s. I was doing 8 shows a week. I was doing Young Frankenstein at the time. And I was sort of like the featured ensemble member. And I was dancing my face off every night. but 8 shows a week, like kicking my right leg,
Oh my
that
gosh.
many times, like on one side, my body was all kind of screwy. And my physical therapist said, you've got to do something else besides this show. Because, back in the day, we would like do the show, go have some drinks, go to bed at 2 a.m, and then sleep until 2, roll into the theater, do some rehearsal. Like I wasn't taking care of myself. I didn't have to the way that I do now, training. So she said, you've got to do something else. And I tried all the things. I went to the gym, hated it. Pilates, no, absolutely not. Like I couldn't deal. It was just too didactic for me. And I stumbled into a Baptiste power yoga class. I was like, oh, this is cool. This feels like dance. It's movement and breath. It feels like it is a meditation. It's hard, but it's soft. It's all the things that I love about dancing. And so I started doing yoga so my body wouldn't get injured on Broadway. And I made it through my career with only one major injury. And it
Wow.
was because of a set piece, not because of my facility. And what I found with yoga, my yoga practice, was that I am a survivor of an eating disorder as well. When I was in my teens, I had a very severe anorexic disorder. I had anorexia. And to the point where my heart got screwed up. I was 15.
Oh my gosh.
And I recovered from that and went on, but I never had a great relationship with my body, and especially as a professional dancer,
Yeah.
you know how
Yeah.
that is. But yoga was the thing because you have to be really strong to stand on your hands.
Oh,
You can't just be
1,000%.
skinny. You're going to like fall on your head, right?
Yes.
So it was the one thing that made me strong like an ox, but also subtle and supple. And that was what cured it. It healed my eating disorder. It got me strong. And then it also did the thing that, anyone that talks about yoga, it does is it brings your mind and your body in alignment and in your highest soul. So like that yoga practice that I had set up for myself has through my life shown up in so many ways of healing and curative nature because it's asking you to connect, not disconnect. And in cancer, that's important.
And do you still do yoga?
I'm going to yoga in about an hour. Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah, but then I later on developed 2 yoga brands of my own and opened up studios in the Hamptons and in New York, and it became part of my career. But yeah, to this day, of course, I practice yoga almost every day.
Amazing. And you take clients, you have these businesses that also support women who may need yoga as well? I mean, do you have that element of your business?
So I closed my yoga studios and the 2 brands, actually, oddly enough, right before COVID, completely independently,
Oh, wow.
of my breast cancer. And then I, of course, as everyone did, I launched an online brand called Damn Good Yoga. And I began teaching large-scale classes online and taught my private clients that I had from before. I brought them online. And then when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020, I did keep my private clients. And then I sort of phased out teaching private clients mostly, except for a few that I like that are like family to me, to focus on what I do now, which is my motivational speaking and my nonprofit and all of the advocacy I do for women's health.
Before I get to women's health,
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you 2 questions. Specifically, one is going back to anorexia. Did anyone know that you were struggling with anorexia?
Mhm.
Did your parents know? And if not, is there a way that parents can assist their girls
Mhm.
if that is a path that they are going down? Specifically, what are the signs?
Mhm.
And what are the best next steps for health? Because
Mhm.
I feel like we're moving into this world and this space where this is becoming compounded.
It's so interesting because I've never gotten to speak on this on a podcast yet. Mostly because it never comes up, and we stumbled our way into this. But I'm glad you asked me because I now, amongst the many things that I do in women's health space, I have friends call me and say, "Hey, my friend's daughter is really sick. She's gonna call you, and you've never met her." And I'm like, "Please give her my phone number. Tell her to call me
I think
tonight."
you're doing that.
And a mom, I'm not gonna cry. A mom, I'll cry 100 times on this podcast. A mom called me from the hospital. Her daughter had just been put in inpatient. She's 14, her daughter. And her and I spoke, and I told her this. And so I'll give you, and the listeners the advice that I gave her that day, which is when I started slipping into my anorexia, I was super skinny. Had nothing to do with my body image at all. I was in dance, obviously, very seriously. I was in ballet and modern. And my anorexia came from perfection, like needing to be perfect and needing to be in control. And it had nothing to do with my family life. I had the best parents. I still do. They're my best friends. I had everything. I grew up with great privilege. I grew up with great parenting. And so it had nothing to, it was completely independent. It was my own. I was type A. So if you have, a daughter or a son, who's prone to type A, driven, very much like can't mess up. I like never wanted to miss one on a test. Those personality types tend to skew towards something with an eating disorder. So I was reminding this mom, I'm like, it's nothing that you did. It's probably actually something that you did in a good way, which is she's driven. Like if you do anorexia really well, you do a lot of things really well. Like I killed anorexia. I was great at it.
Oh my gosh.
So it quite often has nothing to do with what these kids look like. It has to do with what they're craving. And what you can control for me was food. Because I realized I couldn't control life and I couldn't be perfect. No one is, right? But I was like, I must be perfect. So it's breaking the perception of, it's letting your children, fuck up. Let's live our way and screw up into, perfection is not beautiful. What's beautiful is the imperfect moments. And I think teaching that quite often will help alleviate any kind of control issues you have around food. Because my parents didn't know. Because again, if you're really good at anorexia, I would go downstairs, toast a bagel, sprinkle the crumbs, because my parents were still asleep. I was getting ready for, freshman year of high school. They were still asleep. I would sprinkle the crumbs, put butter on the knife. I would set the stage, and then I would put that bagel in the disposal and run it. Our house was big enough they didn't hear the disposal. And they were like, oh, Sarah had a bagel. Oh, Sarah. And, I'd force my best friend, Kristen Ledoux, she always tells, she's still to this day, I would make her eat my lunch on the bus. So that would be gone. And she was like, no wonder I gained weight. You made me eat your lunch. I figured it all out. But you can't hide it once you get down. I dropped down into the 80 pounds at like 5'9".
Oh my, I was going to say, you're so tall.
But that's when my parents had to wake up. My parents weren't noticing the tiny shifts, the 1 pound, 2 pounds. I was dancing. They're like, oh, she's so active. Look at her. So they didn't know until it was really bad and my heart was affected. So if anyone's listening, it's just know, and plus I know it's compounded in this world. We're on this GLP-1 and now it's like everyone's Kate Moss again. I'm like, where the hell did this happen? We were in the body positivity movement and now GLP-1s, like everybody is reed thin, which is a whole nother thing. But it's so much more about, because I was stick thin when I started this eating disorder. It's much more about just what it looks like on the outside, and it's coming from the inside. And quite often it's a control thing.
What's a healthier element that a parent could navigate their child towards instead? To control.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of therapy. I wish, and no, my mother's amazing, but I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My dad was a college football coach, and so I wish when my eating disorder came to fruition that I would have been put in therapy to figure that out, right? To figure out my control issues. Mm-hmm. Instead, they were like, just get fat, gain weight and keep it moving, So I had to figure that out in my adult years. So I think if you have a type A child, I don't know. I never thought about this. What could you push them into instead how do you teach your kid how to screw up beautifully, right? What is it? What is it that would foster the spirit of screwing up and not being perfect? I don't know. It's not ballet, I'll tell you that much. That's why I was never a ballerina I had to be a ballerina on Broadway and I got in trouble a lot because I like imperfection. So I actually haven't thought about that. What would we put our kids in to teach them how to be imperfect instead of perfect?
It's an interesting thought, and I would like to think more about that too. As a mother of a daughter, I think about these things. Yeah. I recently pulled my daughter out of competitive cheer, and that is a completely different story, for, again, another day. But I noticed that was not going to be healthy for her for so many reasons, because their idea of perfect was making her feel shamed.
Yeah. Is she too tall or something? Because that happened to me too. Oh.
When you think about a changing body, how did you wrap your head around the idea of your changing body after breast cancer? Because you had this strong body that you always had and that you nurtured over the years. I mean, you literally came back from anorexia. You had this, super strong body that you knew now how to manage and work for you on the stage. So what happens next during breast cancer treatment and recovery?
Ooh, talk about having to look that anorexia back in the face, strangely enough. Because you're like, oh, now I've gotten to a place where I know my body, I trust my body. Then all of a sudden your body that you trusted turned on you. A car crash happened. A few cells became a few more cells. They turned into a crash, and there I had a walnut-sized lump in my breast. So I'm 38. I'm just in love, planning my life, and I'm dating a New York City guy who, his the whole thing is like, okay, so what's going to happen to my body, right? So if we just look on the outside what my body went through. I'm going to lose my breasts. I loved my boobs. A plastic surgeon called them old marm boobs. Plastic surgeons are not the best with words. They're very good with plastic surgery, which is why we love them. So I loved my old marm boobs. I never wore bras. I was like free as a bird. Okay, I'm going to lose my breasts. Okay, we can make them look, that's fine. Okay. I'm going to lose my hair. My hair is crazy. You guys are listening to this. And if you see any of the video footage, you can see I got wild hair. But I'm not the girl that was known for my hair. Okay, I can lose my hair. It'll grow back. I'm not precious about my hair. So I went through the checklist of things that were going to happen to me. I'm going to be put into menopause because my breast cancer is hormonally driven, which is 80% of all breast cancers are. There's multiple subtypes of breast cancer for the people who are listening, and you don't really know about them all until you're in this world, which I hope none of you have to be in. So my breast cancer fed off estrogen and progesterone. So they're going to put me in menopause, which is what? Probably going to make me gain weight. If you go on message boards, chemotherapy, breast cancer treatment is like the only cancer treatment. You think of a cancer patient who's gaunt. For breast cancer, it is the opposite. The most women gain weight on the treatment, and then afterwards being put into menopause, like no Perry. There's no Perry. We're not having a romance with Perry. We are straight into menopause. This is going to change my body, and my joints are going to ache. And oh my gosh, I'm going to have sexual side effects. All of the things that a woman in her 50s, on average, will go through in menopause. I'm going through at 38. Gosh. So what's going to happen to my sex life with this guy? Is he going to leave me? Like what? What? My body now has become this weapon. Is it going to kill me? Is it going to drive away my partner? Is my anorexia going to come back? Am I going to get fat? Like all of this stuff, I had to look in the mirror and I was like, and what I did, instead of go on the message boards and decide that all these things were definitely going to be my story, is I said, no message boards. Because you've never seen a Yelp review that's mediocre. Right? You see really great Yelp reviews. It's like, this is the best restaurant ever. No one writes that about breast cancer. Okay, so take that one out. So what is it then in the message boards? It is just like people there who it's the worst reviews. So I got off those and I said, I'm not going to forecast. I'm not going to decide that this is I'm going to be in the moment, be present. It's part of me on my yoga mat in the morning. I'm going to wake up, see how I feel, and then make it better. I'm going to wake up, look in the mirror, and that's who I am today. And then we're going to go into how we feel, right? Every day. And because I didn't forecast, I didn't spiral, and I didn't gain weight. And actually my body is probably stronger and healthier than it's ever been. I stopped drinking. That's a whole nother story. Like now I would say I have more vitality now than I did at 38 when I got diagnosed. So to me, I was like, do not forecast, right? Drop into this physical body, ride the waves of change, and know that you're not going to come out the same, but you may come out better.
That's so inspirational because so many people wouldn't. First of all, you went into this really, I mean, again, you went into this seeing this for what this was going to be in the present and not expecting any more or any less. That feels like a very interesting mindset approach. It feels like a very positive and proactive mindset approach.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of what I said, like the muscle I flexed of joy mining and finding that you had to be quick on your feet on Broadway. You'd be quick on your feet when I started a business. I like knew nothing about starting a business and I just like went in, I dove in. Same thing with breast cancer, because if you fast forward, you're going to be so overwhelmed that you won't even make it through the treatment, right? Like if you go out of the present moment, you're not going to, it's not going to be great. Like you really have to go one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. And you have to just be open and not forecast and not go down into the depths. And that really, truly, and listen, you don't go into cancer being like, I'm going to be great at this cancer thing. Like, And I was lucky enough that my life story had led me up to having the skills. I guess I nailed cancer. I don't know, but yeah, that is how I did it. I stayed present.
That's an inspiration for anyone. And the fact that you're healthier now and you have more vitality now than you said at 38, you're probably much more aware of so many elements too, right? Not just about nutrition in general and like lifestyle in general, but probably what works best for you.
Right. And that's also like, what is healthy? Because listen, yeah, I'm in menopause. Yo, my joints, I hobble out of the bed in the morning and my husband just looks at me and I'm like naked and wild haired and I'm like looking like an 80-year-old woman getting to the bathroom, to pee in the morning. And I'm just like, instead of being like, oh God, look at me, I'm so decrepit. I'm like, oh, here she goes, hobbling over. Because I know the more, I'm like a wind-up doll, then I feel better the more I move, right? But there are things that, yes, am I healthier, stronger, and I believe more vibrant now? Yeah, and then I don't get hung up on the other stuff. I don't get hung up on like, we had 5 breast cancer survivors around a table a couple weeks ago. It's like my breastie crew, my little best
Your breastie crew.
Yes, the breasties. I didn't coin that. The breasties coined it. It's an amazing online community, but we call ourselves breasties. And we were all talking about vaginal estrogen and we were laughing about, vaginal PT and stuff like that. And it's like, yes, like that's another thing. Like I wish that wasn't happening, but it is. And like, so yes, there are things that have changed from breast cancer. But on a whole, I think what I gained from that, I don't want to say battle, because the battle language we have a lot of problems with. A lot of survivors have problems with the battle language of like, because, if you lose someone who had cancer, they're like, oh, she's done fighting, as though she like didn't fight hard enough. No, that's just some of us, we lose some people. This disease is terrible. But going through that did strengthen parts of me where, again, I don't look at the joint pain in the morning or the vaginal dryness is what defines me. I feel I have vitality because I look at my life and I am joyful and I'm grateful for it and the miracles that happened.
I mean, your skin literally glows.
Skin Solutions, Tribeca. Anyone that's listening, Lauren Abramowitz, thank you. I've been seeing you for a decade before and after cancer. She's very good. But yes, I think also life.
I think your life is definitely contributing to your glow.
Thank you.
I think that a dermatologist is helpful, but goes only so far.
Thank you. Yeah, but she's great.
So you meet the man of your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I read somewhere you're walking your dog. Can you tell us the story, the evolution of finding out that something felt off, and what was that experience like to diagnose your breast cancer?
Yeah. So James Spencer Bentley was my boyfriend of 9 months. We made it through COVID. We quarantined with my parents in Sarasota, Florida.
He did too?
Yeah, he came with me, girl. He thought he was coming for 2 weeks. 3 months later, we emerged out. We bought a house online in the Hamptons, as one does. We had never seen it. I was like, this looks nice. He's like, let's put an offer on it. So we moved into this house in the Hamptons. We left Florida, went back to New York in June, like during all the wild race riots, and moved into the house in the Hamptons August 4th. It was a hurricane. We drove the U-Haul to the Hamptons in the hurricane. We closed on the house. Our movers came literally after we closed on the house, moved the furniture in, and lost power for 3 days because the hurricane knocked the above ground power out.
Oh my God.
But we got in the house. And so it's August 6th. We get power back. It's a whole hilarious thing. Many great stories from those couple days. And then I took to teaching a million privates, yoga, furnishing the house. Every day I'd stop at Home Goods on the way back in Bridgehampton.
Best Home Goods ever.
Such a good Home Goods.
Such a good one.
And I'd fill our car and we would nest. And it was still COVID. So my husband, who works in finance, could like work from our office that had like, not even a desk in it at the time. Yeah. And so we were rolling August in the Hamptons, beautiful beach walks every night at sunset. And on August 21st, same as, the last couple weeks, we had taken our Boston Terrier Glory on a walk. We lived right across the street. We live right across the street from the beach. Most beautiful sunset in the Hamptons is the Bay sunset. And we have this long path that I call the fairy path because it's just like little fairies live there because it's the most beautiful place in the world. And a couple steps onto the fairy path, I had an itch under my left armpit. And I reached down and I wasn't wearing a bra with my old marm boobs, as we remember. Long live the old marm boobs. And I felt a lump the size of a walnut under my fingers. And I looked over at James, who, had our crazy dog in his hands. And I said, have you ever felt this, feel this? And he was like, whoa, what's that? I've never felt that. I would have known, touch your boobs all the time. We're like, we're in love. I said, huh. We kept walking down the path and had more rosé and, and had friends over that night. And I woke up the next morning and I'm like, whoa, what's this in my body? This is strange. So I called my gynecologist, had a telehealth, COVID. And my gynecologist had known me for 15 years. And she's like, you're healthy, you're young, you have no family history. We're not worried. This is nothing. Now, guys, if you're listening, no family history means nothing, FYI. So she said, I'm going to have someone call you about an ultrasound. Tomorrow you'll get a phone call from a 212 number, Mount Sinai. So this woman called and she said, we can see you in December. I was like, what? Are you sure? She's like, yeah, you're very low risk. You're not, this is COVID. You're not an important, it's just, this is probably nothing. Again, it's probably nothing. So I was like, I don't think that's good enough. Can I talk to a supervisor? And someone will call you back. So then the best they could do was mid-October. And so I'm driving around, still in this wonderful moment, but also having this thing in my, on me. And I'm knowing this is something that's probably, I know my intuition's like, this is something. And I was on my way to teach a private client in Southampton who is, let's just say, very wealthy and very well connected. And I walked into her house and she was complaining about doctors because she had some health stuff. And I said, yeah, you know what? And she's like, what's wrong with you? Look at you. You're healthy. I said, I actually found a lump in my breast. And she's like, literally did the stop sign, got on the phone. And she goes, turn around and get in your car. I said, but I'm in a sports bra. She goes, here's a shirt and here's a mask. Get in your car. You're going to Midtown. You're going to be on that table for an ultrasound in the next hour.
Oh my gosh. It happened that fast.
That fast. One phone call. My, at the time, boyfriend and the dog were back in the house in East Hampton. I was driving to the city alone. I'll never forget. I stopped and I got a Wendy's value meal. So I was like, if we're going down, we're having Wendy's. And I knew. And I got on that table, got the ultrasound on a Friday, Labor Day weekend. And, I study people for a living, acting and bodies. And so I watched this private radiologist give me this ultrasound. And they're supposed to have poker faces, and she definitely did not. But I could tell, and I go, what's going on? She's like, well, it's not nothing. I like, and immediately she made a phone call. She's like, get her in a mammogram now. And like, I started sobbing. And I walked out of that office, already had an appointment with the best breast surgeon in the city. And she goes, just in case, you got to do a biopsy next week, but it's probably nothing. So she knew exactly what she saw. So I had to go back to the Hamptons the next day, work all weekend, and then wait for this biopsy right after Labor Day, where they would, before they did the biopsies, same private radiology firm, before she even stuck me with the needle, she said, I have to prepare you for what I'm going to tell you tomorrow when I call you. I'm going to prepare you right now. And I looked at her and I said, I have cancer. And she said, yeah, you do. She goes, I know what this is. I've seen this 1,000 times. I started to sob, and James was holding my hand above my head, and they proceeded to stick me like 10 to 15 times in my armpit because the cancer had spread into my lymph nodes and in my breast, sobbing, being like, I have cancer. I walked out of that office and my life was never the same.
I mean, I'm going to cry.
It's okay. You can. I'll cry too. I normalize crying now. Y'all, if you're listening, cry all the time. And if someone's uncomfortable with it, just cry.
Oof. So, life after diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back in time
Mm-hmm.
and talk to the Sarrah before diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what you know now, what would you tell her?
Hold on, sister. I would tell her exactly what I told myself then, which was like, this is part of your story. I don't know what it was. I don't know what ancestor or something like came down. I made a video on the way into the biopsy before the doctor told me that I had cancer, unofficially. And I was like, all right, fingers crossed. This is just an angry little lump. And it's just this like innocent little girl, who's just like, it's nothing, right? Yeah, of course. But I knew I had to start getting this on camera. And I said to James later that night after she had told me that I had cancer unofficially, I said, I think I need to share this story. I think this needs to be, I think I'm going to put this on the internet. Are you okay with that? Because you're part of my life. He said, yeah, babe, whatever you need to do to get through it. And by documenting it and sharing it, not only did I continue to help so many women who are going through the same thing, know that it's going to be okay. And by my journey and as I lived it, again, that joy mining, all of that I had put into place years before was what got me through it to this point today. And so I would look back at her and be like, you did it right, sister. Like, you lived it. You lived this, you put it out there, the truth, the joy, the pain, all of it. Like, you didn't try to be strong or try to be anything. You just were present and you were in it, because that's life. And like, since my breast cancer, since my fertility journey and the surrogacy journey, which were crazy, crazy things, miracles had to happen. Life keeps lifing. Things are still happening that are so hard, So it's all the things I've been talking about, I would say, to anyone who is maybe newly diagnosed.
Is there anything about your former life that you wish you could get back? Or do you feel like it made you even stronger and more resilient than you already were?
The only thing, it's not wish I would get back. There is a thing that happens in survivorship, which is any little pain you have, any little anything. See, and breast cancer is pretty gnarly too, because there's no 5-year excitement party, right? Like most cancers, when you get through 5 years remission, they're like, oh, probably not coming back, right? You're like pretty good now. But breast cancer can hide for as long as it wants to and then pop back out like metastatically. So, and they don't do scans every 6, most doctors don't, most don't. They don't do PET scans every year just to make sure there's no cancer there. You're just good. You just go into the world and just assume you're good. And hopefully you are, right? So there is no statute of limitations where you can be like, okay. So I would take away the fear of like any little pain that comes up. You're like, is my cancer in my armpit? And, I just like look at my husband sometimes. And I'm like, my back hurts. There's cancer in my back. He's like, shut up and go back to sleep, But that part, I wish we could kind of move past. But I've gained tools in my toolbox to help that too. But no, I think this journey has crafted me into the woman that's sitting here right now. And I would take the cancer out, like 10 out of 10 would not recommend, but or 0 out of 10, sorry, would not recommend that part. But yeah, I think in many ways, it's grown me into a kind of a much more miraculous woman who I'm much more proud of.
And you brought up something that I have to ask. Should there be a PET scan every year? Like, is that something that...
I'm not a doctor. And I do say that I have some of the best doctors in the world. I will say the reasoning as to why I don't get a PET scan, because people ask me this quite a bit. Because my favorite is like, guys, if you're listening and you know someone that went through breast cancer, it is awkward when you see them, because most of them look like me right now, which is like, you look pretty good, pretty healthy. But people always come up who haven't seen me in a while and they're like, hey, so are you, you're good? You good? Good now? And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm good.
That's an awkward question.
Because they want to know, like, are you cancer free? They want to know, like.
But why not just ask the question, hey, like, so.
Because it's also hard to be like, do you still got some cancer in there?
No, I mean, I'm like, okay, that's a really good question. How do you ask the question? How do we normalize asking the question in a supportive way?
You just say, how you doing, girl? Like, what's up? Like, because again, it's like the assumption that there might be, it's hard, like, because people want to know if you're okay. And so I give people grace in that way. But I think to not ask and you know, because the question is like, we don't know. Like, we have to just sort of move forward with our life. And so to that point is that my doctor does not do PET scans on a basis, because you do get exposed to radiation. And a PET scan is like, you're nuclear.
Got you.
They give you a card. They're like, you have to walk around with this card because the NYPD might think you're holding like a terrorist bomb because you've got you're actively nuclear right now.
I did
for the
not
next
know
24
that.
hours. Oh yeah. It's like the 5th day of having breast cancer diagnosed. I got my PET scan to make sure it hadn't spread, which thank God it had not. Praise Jesus. But like, she goes, okay, here's this card. I'm like, what is this? She goes, because you're going to walk around and like there's counterterrorism units that like are scanning for nuclear material in Manhattan at any given moment. And if they stop you, they're going to like, you might go on their radar and you got to show them this card. And I was like, you have to be freaking kidding me.
That is mind-blowing.
Insult to injury. So there's that. There's also like, if they do scan you every 6 months, say, and something lights up in your body outside of your breast, they're going to assume it's breast cancer. And that thing that lights up is probably not going to cause you pain for another 6 months. So they see that, they're going to know that something's happening and they're going to have to tell you. And if they treat you then, if it's spread already, versus if they treat you in 6 months when you develop pain and symptoms, the outcomes are the same.
Wow.
So do you want to live another 6 months of your life not knowing that you have stage 4 metastatic cancer? Right? Or do you want to live as a ticking time bomb? And this is applicable now to, they have these circulating tumor DNA tests. And if anyone listening, this is like kind of nerdy and scientific, but it's the same reasoning why a lot of people aren't doing those, because it's the same thing. The studies show that until the studies show that early intervention will change outcomes. So this is why we don't get scanned.
I very much appreciate the nerdy, so to speak,
Yeah.
because I've talked to my doctor about that. Oh, should I do the full on body scan
No,
just to
don't.
make sure? And I'm not.
Sorry.
For that very specific. No, thank you. Like,
I'm on the advisory board of a new breast ultrasound company called B Sound, which is coming to New York soon. It's very exciting. But yes, we talk all the time about, it's so misleading, the full body scans, for so many reasons. But also, if you're listening, full body scans do not cover breast imaging. So if you get one and you think I have a clear scan, I don't have to get my mammogram, that is not correct. You have to get your mammogram. And if you have dense breasts, you have to get a mammogram and an ultrasound, even if you have a clear full body MRI scan. Just take that away, people.
that is so important. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So you go through this breast cancer journey.
Mm-hmm.
You have multiple rounds of chemo.
8 rounds of ACT chemo, 28 rounds of radiation, a double mastectomy, 2 reconstructive surgeries, an ovarectomy to remove my ovaries, because I do have a genetic mutation that is not BRCA that everybody knows, but it functions in a similar way to BRCA.
What is that called?
It's my mutation is called BRIP1. You
And
say BRIP1?
I do not mean to be laughing right now.
No,
because
you
it's
have
just
to
the way
laugh,
you
girl.
said it.
Yeah, that's why you say it that way.
I mean, okay, so
BRIP1? I gotta have a T-shirt.
so you've gone through this journey.
Mm.
What does fertility preservation look like? At what
Yeah.
point are you saying that you want fertility preservation?
Mhm.
And what does the surrogacy journey look like? Okay, that was so many questions all at once.
Yeah, but they're really important pieces to the puzzle. Okay, why am I like the bearer of bad news for your listeners? Listeners, I hope you never get diagnosed with breast cancer. But if you get diagnosed with breast cancer and you're of childbearing age and you have not finished your family building journey yet, let this be the second question you ask your doctor after, am I going to be okay? I luckily did not have to ask my doctor because I didn't know that breast cancer treatment affects fertility. Why would you? It's breast cancer, right? So I'm sitting in the office with James next to me, my boyfriend of 9 months, and I'm terrified. It's 3 days in to this whirlwind of breast cancer diagnosis. I'm with Dr. Elisa Port, chief of breast surgery of all of Mount Sinai. She's the best in the business. It's deep COVID. She goes, sit over there. Okay. James sits next to me. She goes, a little further away. She goes, take your mask off. And I took my mask off. James took his mask off. She took her mask off. Like deep COVID. She's like, we got to look at each other in the eyes for this conversation. And so we first talked about my options with surgery, and we got through that. And she said, next question, you two look like you're very much in love. And I was like, we are. Yeah. At one point I was like sitting on his lap. She goes, do you want kids? And we both said, yeah, we really do. I said, why are you asking this? She's like, well, this treatment is going to affect, this makes me cry every time, this treatment's going to affect your fertility. And we need to make sure that you have an opportunity to preserve it before you start it so we can make sure you have a kid one day. I was like, wait, what? She goes, so when you leave this office, you're going to go to this office. I already made you the appointment. It's the RMA of New York, and you're going to meet with Dr. Copperman, who was golfing because it was Labor Day. So I had a different doctor, Dr. Buyuk. You're going to sit there and you're going to make a plan. Okay. So then we walked right to RMA right after that. And James sat next to me, same deal, take the masks off, far away. And he said, do you want to freeze eggs or embryos? Because if you freeze embryos, it's a better success rate, right? And so I'm like, holy shit, what's he? And so I look at James because I don't know how to answer. I want to see how he's going to answer. And he didn't even skip a beat and he said, embryos. I was like, whoa. Okay.
Like, this is real.
This is my man. I mean, I knew this, but that was deeper than a ring. That was like a 10-carat diamond that man just gave me. He said embryos, and Dr. Buyuk was like, okay. So we launch into 2 rounds of back-to-back IVF after Dr. Port removed both of my breasts with a double mastectomy. I had my surgical drains still in when we started shots in my belly. And round 1, we got, I think, like 12 eggs. I was 38, whatever. I'd partied, but like my husband too. I was like, if you drink beer during this IVF process, I will murder you. It's a whole different story for a different day. It's a great story, though, about how we definitely drank beer and got hammered the night of the trigger shot, but we'll save that when we have more time. And we froze 1 normal embryo, which they genetically tested, and it was normal. And went right into the second round, where we, same deal, 12 eggs, did the little ICSI with the picking the perfect sperm, and we made another embryo that made it through the freezing process. And when they genetically tested that embryo, it was not normal. Mm. I remember they called me with that. So the first round, we made a boy. He said, what you want to know? And I said, yes. He goes, a boy. You have a boy embryo. So the second round, we prayed for a girl. And the first round, after we knew we had a boy, we named him. I was like, so you're saying there's a chance? And James was like, Chance. And I said, his name is Chance.
Just got the chills.
I know.
Oof, just got the major chills.
Oh my God. I like process when I tell the story. I tell it so much. I'm processing it with you, though. This makes me happy. So there's Chance. Chance is frozen. Great. We got Chance. So let's try to pray for a girl. And she's our hope for a girl. We hoped for a girl, so her name was Hope. So when they called me and they told me that the embryo we froze was not normal and they had to discard it, obviously, I was heartbroken. But there was a possibility that my fertility could come back after chemo, right? So I held on to hope. I held on that hope would come. So we had Chance freezing in Midtown. I went through all my treatments. I knew I'd have to get my ovaries out. But we waited a year after my chemo was done. I went back to RMA with Dr. Buyuk, and I'll never forget, this was the single hardest day of this whole thing. He looked on the screen, and the screen where you should see chocolate chips in your ovaries, they look like chocolate chip cookies to me. Each chip is an egg follicle. I had no chips in my cookie, right? And then he looked at me in his Eastern European and he was like, I do not think we should do another round. This is not good. Nothing will happen. You can do it. And I just was like, okay, it's done. It's over. It's over. And I went home that night to our apartment building and I wailed so loud that James held me and they called the cops because our neighbors thought I was being hurt. That's how distraught I was that my fertility was now officially gone. And so I said, take the ovaries. And now we have chance. We have our one baby boy, one little chance. And they told me that I, because of my age, because of the medication I would need to be on for a decade, that it would be a very bad idea to try to transfer this embryo to me. I would be 44 before I would be given a chance to try to get pregnant with this one embryo. And I'd never been pregnant in my life. I'd never been pregnant. She goes, you need a surrogate. And so that was what launched us into our surrogacy journey. And to tail end this story, I will say that years later, I'm on a podcast, much like this one, with my fertility doctor. And he's looking at my chart in front of his face.
I'm literally like falling over
That's
here.
okay.
I can't
Get
even
you a
help it.
Kleenex. He's looking at my chart and he's going through this because it had been years later. It's like, no, we don't remember all this. And I said, hey, Dr. B, you never told me. Can I ask you what the sex was of that embryo that was from the second round that you had to discard was? Because you really want to know? And I said, I really do. He said it was a girl.
Oh my God.
And I said, it's Hope. And you know what? I have a bracelet on that has her name on it, Hope. And I know you're not supposed to give personhood to embryos, guys. I'm not that person. But she is now our guardian angel. So we do have a little girl in the sky, and her name is Hope, and she existed. And, that's how things work.
It's so, I had no idea that Chance was named
Yep.
so far in advance. That is beautiful. And so today you have a foundation that you've created,
Uh-huh.
and it's
Call it a chance for life. And the foundation is to pay for surrogacy after breast cancer because, spoiler alert, we had a great surrogate. Her name is Whitney. She's like his aunt. My son came. I had one chance, 20% chance of working this embryo because he was fair quality. Anyone that's listening that knows about fertility, which a lot of you do, day 7 AC embryo. So they were like, oh, good luck. He worked and he's a miracle and he's here. And I prayed to Chance. That's why we named him too, I think, is like I spoke his name aloud for years to get him here. And he's here now. And he's amazing. And he has pink eye right now because he's 2. So a chance for life pays for the entire surrogacy journey. We give $150,000 grant a year to a breast cancer survivor and her partner. Because how would you like to go through everything I went through and then someone say, hey, you need $150,000 to bring your miracle here? Because Chance, that little frozen guy got me through. He's the one thing. The chance of Chance got me through. So it broke my heart because there's nothing that exists to help surrogacy. There's a lot of IVF help and stuff. So yeah, and our first couple, Rusty and Christina, their surrogate is 6 months pregnant. So the chance for life baby, and she's a girl. She is the girl, y'all. I want them to name her Hope, to be honest. No, I want them to name her
I was thinking
what
that
they
in
want
the
to
back
name her.
of my head.
Yeah.
I was like, could that be?
I don't know. I'll have to ask Christina. I talked to her yesterday. But yeah, so my mess has become my message. What I went through, I now hope to always help through my Instagram and my documentation of my journeys, both through breast cancer and surrogacy and through my foundation, to continue to help women on this path and for them to know that life is going to be really good on the other side.
That's beautiful. I am so touched by everything you're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was a way to edit out how red and puffy my
Stop,
face
don't
has
do
become.
it. We're normalizing crying.
No, I mean,
don't edit it out.
normalize
It's
the
beautiful.
crying.
Emotions are beautiful.
They are. I like to refer to you as a multi-hyphenate because you really are. And in this journey, if you look back, I mean, here's my ultimate question. Knowing what you know now, what would you do, or would you do anything all over again?
In a different way? Would I change anything, you mean?
Would you
or would I
change
just
anything?
repeat? Because I wouldn't repeat. I don't know if I'd repeat. No, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. The things in my life, like now, I'm 120 days alcohol free today. Yay! I might have like changed my relationship with that a little bit because everybody's got their thing. And drinking wine was definitely my thing. And like when you're going through something so vastly gnarly, like, and my oncologist was like, girl, drink the wine. It doesn't matter. We're going to bomb your whole body. But I often quite use wine to numb out to get through certain moments of my life. And like, if I could change anything about any of the journey of my life would be probably drink less wine so you could feel more, even the bad times. Even the bad times, that would be like really the only thing that comes to mind. But no, I think we're given this specific set of tools that each of us have. And the fact that humans are so beautiful because all of our tool sets are different. And we kind of share our tools with each other to build our own respective toolbox that, I think it was lived exactly as it should have been. Right. And it's led me to be here. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything, save for like maybe drink a little less white wine.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard survivors talk about a second chance, which again, every time I say chance.
Every time I say chance too, I'm like, oh, I have a chance.
You have a chance.
I do.
So I've heard survivors talk about this new second chance, this new lease on life that they're discovering. I feel like you've always had a very healthy, positive outlook on life. But what would you say that getting this second chance has done when you think about starting all over again? Has it helped you start all over again in any way that you wouldn't maybe have recognized had you not been through this journey?
I don't think of it as starting all over again.
Just say beginning again.
I think of it as just like a continuation of this story and this journey. But I will say that one thing I've noticed in survivorship is that what happens is you're like, am I on borrowed time? Right? And it goes back to what we spoke about a little bit. Is my cancer going to come back? Am I going to be that, I can't remember off the top of my head, the percentage of early stage breast cancer that turns metastatic? Am I going to, am I living on borrowed time? Therefore, do I have to do things like all these things I want to get done? For me, my book, as we talked about in the beginning, off camera, my book, my one woman show. I have all these things, right, that I want to achieve. And there was for a while there, this need to be like, I got to do it now. I got to do it now. I got to do it now. So much so to the point where I was getting down on myself for not having, you see these people that are doing it all. And I'm like, I should be doing it all. But I'm like, I have this miraculous, insane, tiny drunk person in my house who I prayed for years. For my life, I've prayed for this soul. I called him down. And I'm like, why do I not have enough time to write a book? Oh, wait. It's because he just smacked me in the face and laughed and cried in the same 20-second period. I want to remember this forever. So what it has done is it's brought me back to, we're all constantly trying to hustle and achieve all this stuff. And this notion that there is time for the book. Right now, I'm in the phase of my life where this kid thinks I'm his world and I'm going to let him be mine. And that is enough. That is more than enough. That is life. That is why I fought to be here, right? So I think like moving forward in this new normal is to remember that, yes, all my friends just have books come out and like all these things are happening and like, I'm going to do it too. And I'm going to have time. But right now, this isn't the time in my life to scratch that itch. It's a time in my life to have someone be like, so what did you do today? And I'm like, well, I got banana on this right pant leg and I'm praying that I don't have pink eye. Because that's just as much of an achievement as living in those small moments as like living in the huge ones. That's what I take away when I think about if I'm on my deathbed. You don't think about like, oh yeah, I did that one thing, I achieved this, that. You think about the loved one that's holding your hand and you think about, the moments like that. Those are the important ones.
And to your point a second ago about talking about how there's these people that seem like they have it all together and they're doing all the things, I've noticed that they are almost always, at least from what I'm noticing, in a certain segment of their life. And it's typically a woman who is, in a later phase, maybe her kids are out of the house, her kids are
Even in school 5 days a week, full days.
Like high school or college, but specifically college. I mean, it's inspiring on two counts, right? One is like, okay, this means that there's a life after, right? So it gives license to be able to live right now. But there's always, to your point, there's later, because I've gotten in that phase too. There was all these things that I thought I would accomplish by now. And I start to get down on myself and I think, okay, but it's okay. I would much rather be present right now and live this life, this messy life that I have, and go through all of this and be here. And I'll have a chance to do all of these things later on when time permits, and this opportunity that I have right now is gone.
Yep.
But let's take advantage of the opportunity now.
Yeah, and having like one kid, I already am like, James, we need to adopt a child from India. I don't know why. There's a Maharaja dream. It's a whole thing. But like, because I'm like, I want to do this again. Like, I don't remember enough from when Chance was a baby because I was so tired. I want to know more. I want to take every single second in. Right? And it's so like it's like such a, we're creating tiny humans. Like, how cool, right? So like, that's enough. And in this Instagram era, of like highlight reels of our lives, I don't know, like, I don't want to live in the highlight reel. I want to live like in the little in-between moments. So,
because that's living.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. We're not like, no one when I die, they're not, I don't want them to, at least, be like, she wrote a New York bestseller. That's cool. Like, she did 7 Broadway shows. Cool. Like, she launched brands. I want them to be like, she made me feel really good when I was around her. Like, I really liked hanging. I liked being around Sarrah,
I believe that will be your legacy.
Oh, good. I hope so.
I feel that from you.
Yay. Good.
So if you had any parting words for our listeners, what would they be?
I had so many words for you guys. So many words.
I mean, you've had wonderful.
Mind your joy. Not in a, false, like, not in this like toxic positivity way, but like, mind your joy. Life is going to keep lifing. There are always going to be things that we want more of, or things that we wish weren't happening, or things we didn't see coming. But there always is, I promise you, there is joy through those times of your life. And that still is a cumulative part of it. When you do hit that, the final chapter where you're like, this is all part of your chapter. And I think developing that muscle of how to find it, especially when it's harder, is such an invaluable thing. Because like, life is great. Like, it's freaking beautiful. And I think keep going back to that, And then the other thing I would say is build and find community. I know we talk about that all the time. It's like, my tribe and my crew of people, and I have a lot of different ones, like that's your family and that's your life.
Community truly keeps you going.
Yeah.
And speaking of chapters,
yeah,
and I can wait. I'll be so patient.
No, are you going to manifest the book? Because the more I talk about it, the more we have to do it.
Yes, when the time is right.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to read your memoir.
Thank you.
When it happens.
Right. What she's alluding to is the fact that I have 3 chapters written and I'm like, why am I not sitting down and writing? And I was like, oh, because you know what? This is the hold your son that co-sleeps with you in the bed every night in a queen-size bed with your dog and your husband. Hold him on your chest and put on a silly show, a program on your phone and go to sleep instead of writing, because, that is where you are and that's the capacity you have right now.
1,000%.
Yeah.
You just got to get there when you're ready.
I will, but stay tuned for the book. It'll come eventually.
Stay tuned. And Sarrah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. It was such an amazing conversation. Thank you for having me.
It means the world that you were here. Thank you.
Of course.